Welcome to Educating Geeks, the podcast where friends help friends discover new passions. I'm geek host Bri, and in the studio today we also have
Andrea
and Sara.
And today we are educating myself and Andrea about E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Ooh. So I'll start with you, Andrea. What prevented you from seeing E.T.?
The reason I never saw E.T. is totally unfounded and horribly bitter and jealous of me. So my sister and I are about 4 years apart, and when E.T. came out in 82? Well, when E.T. was popular, my sister was little, and by the time it got to be really big, my sister was about the age that Trudy was, and looked...
Gertie
looked exactly like Gertrude, like identical to Gertrude. And no matter where we went, the conversation always went to, oh my God, did you know she looks just like the girl from E.T.? Yes, we know. Have I mentioned that we know? So after a while, when you hear that so much as a kid, you're just like, I'm never going to see that movie. Never going to see that movie. Nope, never going to see that movie. I'm good. So even after I got married, my husband's like, we should watch E.T. I was like, no. I'm not watching that movie. And then Alice found out, and she's like, oh, guess what's going to go on the Educating Geeks list? E.T. And I was like, screw you.
Yeah, I had 0% interest in ever watching E.T. I don't know why. I never saw it. It didn't really interest me. E.T. looks creepy. And I watched Mac and Me, so it's like basically the same thing, right?
I never watched Mac and Me. So.
Whatever, it's the same thing. Some kid falls
I
off
was
a
too
cliff,
old
whatever.
for Mac and Me.
So E.T. was just never interesting to me, and it frankly never looked that good to me. What's your experience with E.T., Sara?
E.T. is the first movie that I remember seeing in a movie theater. And it's also the first movie that I ever cried at the end of.
Aww.
And I gotta say, I did not have that experience this time around. But I remember seeing it. It was a weekend that we got to spend with my dad, and he took me to go see. He took me to go see it. I don't even know if my sister was born yet, so it wasn't like I had a choice. Like, Dad, take me to go see E.T. because I was 3. You know, it's
right.
When you're 3, you're just kind of like, what are we doing? Okay, we're gonna go see this movie. And I remember just being in love with it and thinking it was so magical, and I wanted an E.T. friend. And my dad, after that, bought us these, and I still have them. I still have them at my house. They're these little TV trays that are metal, and they're kind of rusted now, but I bet they're still worth something. But they're worth something to my heart. Aww. Pancakes on these little TV trays in bed, and it was just really sweet. And so I have all these really fond memories of E.T. And then I watched it again and obliterated them.
Let's start with our favorite moments and our least favorite moments. So, Drea,
interesting.
What would you say?
I think my favorite moment was near the end, when you've got the 2 boys who are the 3 boys that are friends with the brothers. And they hijacked the van. The van. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
They hijacked the van.
They hijacked the van and dragged the thing behind the van with the 2 guys in hazmat suits in it. Like, the guys are in it and they're dragging the big tube, and the bicyclists are just riding along with them. And like, I think that's my favorite part because it's just so hilarious.
That I would have to say that is my favorite part too. I loved how the boys, the friends, were just like spectators, didn't even know what was going on. All of a sudden, their friend who has stolen a government hazmat van drives up and is like, meet us at the park. And they're like, I'm down. They don't even ask why. They're just like, yeah, pulling down their little balaclavas and their sunglasses.
Which they obviously were wearing because they had to put adults on the bikes for the chase scene, and they had to disguise them.
Dude, we talked about doing the 5 boys and the E.T. cosplay at Comic-Con next year would be so awesome. Are you kidding me? We just roll around in the horrible sunglasses and the giant trucker hat.
My favorite part was the first part in the whole movie where I finally laughed and felt anything. It was when Gertie saw E.T. for the first time and she just started to scream, would be my reaction. So I'm like, I'm right there. Every step of the way with Gertie in this movie, I'm just like, you're having the right reactions mostly.
I also did like, though, the scene where E.T. got drunk off the horrible Coors beer. And then so we'll talk about the mom, but when the mom comes home and she kind of just like looks at the cans, but she's like, what the heck? Okay. But like E.T.'s just wandering around through the house like horribly drunk. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah.
We might as well go into the mom right now.
Oh,
we might as
yeah.
well. It's already been brought up. So the eternal negligence of the mother.
Okay, but you have to take into account this was a completely different atmosphere for raising your children. I mean, you could spank your kids could get spanked by teachers. I mean, it was just a different environment.
How old was Gertie, though? How old was she?
I want to say maybe 5 or 6.
She was like
not
5
even.
years...
4, maybe?
4 or 5 years old. Her mom says, oh, shoot, I have to go to your brother's school. Hey, just like stay here for 5 minutes alone, which is not going to be 5 minutes.
I
And then
know.
when Elliot returns from from being missing and spending the night in the forest, she's like, "Oh, he has a fever. Gertie, go run a bath." Like, how does a 4-year-old know what temperature to run the bath? Like, do you trust? I don't even trust a 4-year-old to be a bath alone. Like,
Well, I mean, but come on. I don't know. When I was younger, I had a lot more freedoms than I see people give their kids now, and it teaches you character, and we all came out okay for the most part.
I mean, I guess.
there's a difference.
Depends on
I
your
think.
definition.
There's a difference, I think, between freedom and negligence. So I mentioned on Facebook like how bad the mother is, and Bri's friend Bill was like, "Oh, come on, she was a single parent in the 80s," and I was like, "But was it okay for single parents in the 80s to be dancing around the kitchen in their bathrobes when their teenage son's friends are over?" Like, she's just creepy.
I know,
I think
but
she was really having a moment. Like, she was going through a lot.
yeah, and I was reading about the plot synopsis, and it kind of sounds like either freshly divorced or still in the process between Elliot's mom and dad. So to an extent, you can kind of argue she's having a little bit of a breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
she's
totally.
definitely having a breakdown.
And I mean, she's a single mom, and if it's a quiet suburban neighborhood, and if your neighbors are used to it and they understand it, you don't have a choice. What are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do if you have to go around and stuff like that? But
Run the kid over to the neighbor and be like, 15 minutes, I'll be right back. That's
or
all you have to
take her
do.
with. Why couldn't she have gone? Why couldn't Gertie have gone to?
I'm sure she's
because
seen her
it didn't
brothers
feed
yell
the
that.
plot line, okay? Because it didn't feed the plot line.
Yeah, and I kept thinking like, if this movie would have never happened if this mom were halfway competent.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's how I have to watch 80s movies. It's the same way I have to watch Die Hard, the same way I have to watch like The Breakfast Club. You have to watch it and not like break it apart and be like, well, that was horrible. Why wouldn't the mom just take her? Okay, it's part of this. That's how they wrote it. That's what the script said. The script said to leave her at home and let her make connection with the alien there.
I actually prefer the way that 80s movies do things because they'll be like, well, kids will say penis breath. Kids are going to say shit like this, and they're going to act up and do things they shouldn't do, and they're not all going to be angels who say, oh, darn. They're going to be like, ah, God damn it.
Yeah. Oh, shucks.
Yeah, like, it's not like that. Things are really clean. Kids' movies these days are really clean cut. E.T., like, they curse. They do things they're not supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Get drunk. He didn't intend to get drunk, but,
That was so funny. I still think that's so funny. I'm still picturing the little ET alien just like roaming around, running into everything because he's drunk and doesn't realize he's drunk.
Yeah.
He got into everything though. Anyway, I kind of want to now that we're done talking about the ineptitude of the mother, let's talk about the ineptitude of this spaceman, E.T.
Oh my gosh.
So I kept thinking, why was he chosen for this Earth mission?
At first I got the impression at the beginning of the movie that he was kind of a baby. But then he builds this like incredible machine that contacts his people.
Let's use the word incredible loosely. I'm just saying.
It's incredible that it contacted them at all.
Yeah. Magical, more like it.
So here's this spaceman, and here on Earth we have NASA and cosmonauts, and they're usually the cream of the crop. They are in top shape physically, emotionally, mentally. They go through all different kinds of scenarios in training so that when bad shit happens in space, they don't even have to think about it. It's just automatic. And I would like to think that a civilization that can send its beings to an entirely different planet, like inhabited planet, which we haven't been able to do yet, would also have kind of similarly chosen and well-trained personnel. But then
maybe he was the Wesley Crusher of the planet, of like the ship of the ETs.
Well, I kept thinking about...
In terms of being young?
Yeah, he's just kind of young and doesn't know a whole lot of shit, but thinks he does.
What kind? I was thinking about friend of the podcast Nathan Blackwell's web series Voyage Trekkers, and how the GSV Remarkable is captained by the younger brother of the best captain in the fleet, and he is the worst captain of the fleet, but because of nepotism he is allowed to fly around, and he and everybody else on his crew is kind of similarly idiotic but still lovable. I think ET is adorable, and I think that
Bri just shook her head at ET is adorable.
Right. I disagree. I think he's totally adorable.
I think he's a child murderer.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that too. But he's lovable. He's just kind of an idiot. And I think that maybe that was like the GSV of the ET people. Like, just everybody on that ship is just really, not the best, but there's nowhere else to put them.
When Trudy said, I don't like his feet, I was like, I'm right there with you, Trudy. I don't like his anything.
See, and I more take it like, I built this big story like E.T. was a stowaway, and like he hitched a ride on this ship, and then they landed, and he's like, I'm gonna get away, and then they left him, and he's like, oh shit, what do I do now? But that's just me. It's totally unfounded.
Have, like, communicators or anything.
They use their hearts, their creepy hearts.
Okay, if your heart's in your stomach, we need to get you to a doctor, because that was definitely like a Care Bear belly glow right there.
Hey, they're aliens. It could be anything, but it looked like it had a fluttering to it, so I just assumed heart.
It's probably what they were going for, but I'm
gross.
It kind of fluttered like what happens when I get hungry
liver.
and I walk that hangry line.
Oh, look, it's his gallbladder glowing.
It's his liver.
I think he connects himself to this child. And then E.T. knows that he doesn't have long to live on this planet. So he puts this child through all this anguish and all this sickness. Frankly, I find E.T. absolutely terrifying.
I kept thinking, what kind of evolutionary advantage does that race have with that? Like, you get to drag somebody else, the people that you love and you should bond to like help support your civilization and yourself. That's why we bond, is to collaborate and succeed and thrive. But if you're dragging the people that you're bonded with through all of your emotional and physical bad crap, nobody's going to want to bond with you. And then it's going to be just like a bunch of loners. Like,
maybe E.T. is like the spaceship jerk. And there's like,
he's the douche of the brigade.
We're leaving him behind. Oh no,
he's the toxic guy on the spaceship.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, like, oops, Lance didn't get back on the ship. Well, we made every effort possible. Let's get out of here.
I wonder how you say douchebag in their language, or how many gloves of the tummy it takes. I have a question for you, Sarah, because when I was watching it with Alice and Megan and one of Megan's friends, they were saying that the first time they saw this movie, it was actually kind of scary. Like back in the day, like it was sort of that anxious horror, not horror, but like fearful kind of scary, which obviously at my age with the horrible effects and everything. It wasn't all that scary. But did you have that experience? Was that?
I honestly don't remember. It's very possible. And I remember when I put it in the DVD player and just the introduction credits were rolling the other day, I was like, oh, this is really kind of creepy, scary music. And that whole scene at the beginning is kind of creepy, scary. But I don't remember feeling that. And if I did feel that, which is very likely, it was replaced by oh, I want an alien friend. I'm so sad he left. Oh, glowing fingers. That kind of just joy
Attachment
at the end.
Maybe that's what they were going for. It just creeps me out the whole time, though.
Okay, when I was watching that first scene after the shed and he goes into like the field next to it or whatever, I was like, oh my God, I'm watching Signs. Who put Signs in? I hate this movie.
Yeah, E.T. was a real creep for like the first 15 minutes. And then I think you were supposed to warm up to him. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I can see how in the 80s kids absolutely would have, and they would, as Sarah said, want an E.T.
Oh, especially dressing him up. Like
that was great.
Oh, my little boy cousin Steve wouldn't let us dress him up, but if E.T. would have let me dress him up. Yeah.
I want a Gertrude. I want a little spunky Gertrude who just kind of like says it as it is and is like, Mom, it's an alien. Like, what's wrong with you?
Did they leave yet? I'm supposed to give this to you when they leave.
Yeah, that was perfect. What do you mean leave? And she just reaches out and hands it
Gives
over.
them the note. This is what we're doing. So I want to comment on the reason why Andrea didn't watch it being what she loves the most about the show.
Yeah. I love you, Becca.
That's fair. I had a friend who didn't watch Star Wars until she was like 23 because her name was Jetty and people would always say Jedi to her. And so she's just like, I'm never going to watch this movie. Yeah. So I can see having reasons for not wanting to watch something.
Yeah. And of course, like you have that feeling when you're younger and you don't understand how to rationalize past it. And then when you're older, you're just like, my original rationalization still stands. Like,
yeah. Why should I change?
Why should I like be reasonable and logical? Oh, you had found a really interesting note in, was it the Wikipedia about the Reese's Pieces situation?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I want to pause there and go to some notes that I have for when Elliot is throwing the Reese's Pieces in the forest. Like, what made him do that? Like,
food, I don't
just
know.
Hansel and Gretel follow the breadcrumbs.
I don't know.
Also, it's the forest, so there's no specific path. So it's just like, random scatterings, just here and there of food. Like, I would never find my way back anywhere that way.
He was like feeding him like a bird. Like, here, E.T., here you go, scatter.
Well, and then I love how when E.T. comes back, he's like,
carrying the Reese's
I have all
Pieces.
these Reese's Pieces in my hand. I picked them up after you. Stop littering, kid.
Yeah, you lost these.
E.T. supports Stop Littering campaign.
So, I read in Wikipedia that they originally wanted M&Ms to be the candy, but Mars thought that E.T. was ugly.
I agree.
And scary.
Yes.
And so that opened the way for Hershey to promote their Reese's Pieces candy.
Do we know, was Reese's Pieces made for this, or did it already exist?
It already existed, I'm sure.
Existed.
And, oh man, all the things in Elliot's room, like, as soon as he goes into his room with that bag of Reese's Pieces and puts it down, just all of the toys he has and, like, the Star Wars stuff and just the general 80s stuff. Like, that's what my friend Bill immediately pointed out. He's like, try making this movie now. Like, all the licensing would be out of control.
Well, and they're just so iconically 80s. To find it all in such good shape would be a feat.
Oh, yeah.
And expensive.
But his room was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Man, imagine being Eminem now and being like, well, I fucked up there.
Which version did you watch, actually?
I was keeping an eye on the hands in it, and it looks like there were guns in the version I watched.
So we streamed it from Amazon.
We did too.
And so we got the original version of it without all the digital enhancements. It wasn't the anniversary edition or with the walkie-talkie gun switch out.
Because Devin had the anniversary DVD, which he had bought to show to Claire a few years ago. And I had completely forgotten about that. I was just like, oh, good. E.T. is on DVD. Plopped it in. And I'm like, why is E.T. in CG in some scenes?
Yeah.
Huh. And they used it really sparingly. It wasn't like the Star Wars re-releases where it was just disgusting and gratuitous and like, look what I can do, like kind of masturbatory. But it was still...
There was like a pause after that word too. Everyone was like, did she really just say that?
Totally
no, I
did.
completely agree.
But it did kind of take away from it. And I'm glad that you guys got to see it with just all the puppetry, because I think that the puppetry was really good, especially during the scene when E.T. was dying. And
oh my God.
Like the seizing of the alien body.
Yeah. Oh, well, just like the little, like his mouth moving and his little heart fluttering and his lungs breathing.
Have you guys seen Ju-on, or The Grudge is the American version?
The horror movie?
Yes.
No.
So E.T., to me, there's this little boy in it who's a ghost, who's an evil spirit ghost. And E.T. looks just like that little boy, because they both have like powdery white skin and like
weird
dark
eyes.
eye thing going on. I'm just like, okay, this is definitely a horror movie.
When you posted that on Facebook, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
yes.
I did a side-by-side comparison.
So I just want to clear this up. Bri, did you not like this movie?
Can you tell? Yeah, I don't know. There's so much hype around it, and I never saw it as a kid, and it wasn't very interesting or magical to me as an adult.
Do you think it would have been if you had seen it at that age?
I think it would have still been a little too long and boring for me, but I probably would have been more accepting of it. Now all I can see is like the negligence of all the adults, and like everybody's a jerk, and I'm just like, ugh.
The government people,
yeah.
They were just as inept. Oh,
They were so creepy about everything.
I'm sorry, subtlety was lost on them.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like they show up and they're wearing like spacesuits, but then other people show up in hazmat suits.
Well,
like what is going on there?
It wasn't until it was really interesting, because watching it from like an adult perspective and being the only one in the group who'd never seen it and everything, watching it, the only adult face you saw until E.T. was dying was the mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they did everything they could to mask every single adult face or head or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they were hunting him in the forest, you didn't see anything. The character's name was Keys, because the keys jingled in his pocket. Really creative one there.
Yeah, and the mother, I would say that she was forcing the children to parent her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the ET keeping ET a secret was like totally okay with the kids, because clearly they would have to keep secrets to protect their mom from information like our dad is in Mexico with a lady named Sally or something, or she would freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
So
He doesn't even like Mexico.
I don't know. I thought it was an interesting cinematic move to keep all the adults kind of in nondescript until like shit hit the fan, and then when all the scientists were saving them, there was a pivotal moment where it turned and you did see all their faces. Like
it panned up from the keys to the
it was
face.
a change. Like you could even feel it in the movie.
Oh,
like it went from nondescript kind of creepy to like everyone's faces there, like shit's happening.
And you still don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Well, and they're just inept too. They're like, they have all this quarantine stuff, and then ET dies, and everybody rips off their masks and gives him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Like, wait, weren't you just
like, what's
trying?
the point?
What are you doing?
You put the
this
entire
for?
house in a garment bag, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Again, it was written in the script to do that.
Right? Yeah. Like, so I paused it several times so that I could write these diatribes about how stupid everybody was.
Yeah.
And that's why it took me 3 nights to watch it. Plus, it was very long. And plus, I would just be like, I don't want to go back to this. This mom is really pissing me off, and I just want to strangle her. So
I
just play Angry
live
Birds.
tweeted through the whole thing. I was just like, I'm watching ET right now. This is what I hate. This is what I hate. This is terrible.
I'll tell
Gertrude's
you though,
the best.
the scene where they dress up ET like the ghost and pretend like it's Gertrude, and the mom's dressed up like a cat.
Yeah.
Like,
It was pretty
that
good.
was killing me. Killing me. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the movie. I don't think it's something that like
there were parts I enjoyed.
Yeah, I don't think I had this like magical epiphany type relationship with it, but I really enjoyed it. And I really like 80s movies, and I'm such a realistic person that like everything you guys are saying about how that's totally not practical or real, I 100% on board with you guys there. But because I do that with everything, for me, these movies, it's easy for me to be like, click.
You can
Just
suspend your
enjoy it.
disbelief
Yeah.
a little bit better than we can.
Just watch it and see what happens. But we had a lot of fun when we watched it. We laughed a lot. There was a lot of good drinking game rules that came up too. So I liked it. It was fun. It was a fun movie.
I probably would have liked it more watching it with you guys, because you guys are always fun to watch stuff with.
I got better. I didn't ask Alice, what's going to happen? Every couple of minutes, so she didn't have to yell at me.
Yeah. I'm really confused too, because the hazmat people showed up and they're like, we're here to help. We want to help ET. We want to make everything better. And then when the kids take off, like all of a sudden it's guns drawn. everybody get them.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Right? They're running away with our specimen.
Let's shoot the kids.
Oh, okay, yeah. I remember I had written down my favorite quote, though, was back at the scene during Halloween when they're trying to get their costumes on, and you just hear the mom and the oldest son shouting from the other room. She's like, I don't care what all the other boys are. You're not going as a terrorist. And you see him come out, and he's got the fake beard and, like, the turban, and you're like, wow, that's totally not gonna fly nowadays.
I don't remember that part. I remember that line and wondering, like, did I mishear that? Because he's dressed like a hobo now.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He took his terrorist outfit and he made it a hobo, but it's like very kind of clearly still a terrorist, like, or the stereotypical image of what you'd believe a terrorist would look like. And I just remember I heard that and I like started just dying on the couch. And I was like, is this real? Is this happening? It was good. That was my favorite. That and penis breath. Those were my favorites.
Yeah, that whole penis breath dinner scene rang very true. That was probably my favorite scene.
We need to bring that back.
Penis breath.
Penis breath.
There's nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah, that was good though. I was really confused on why. I never thought of being a terrorist as a Halloween costume.
I can say something that I did definitely like, and it's the score, because John Williams did it, and I played the score a lot. Like, you always do John Williams in symphonic band, and I did like a decade of symphonic band, so I played a lot of John Williams. So I was like, oh, I recognize this. I like this.
Yeah, I liked the end credits, how they had taken the theme to the piano, and it was just a piano piece, just like rolling and like it was so. It gave me goosebumps.
Do you know the Harkins theme is just basically the ET theme backwards?
Is it?
It is.
Really?
Basically. Or at least that's what my band teacher in high school always told me.
Oh.
He was always just like, yeah, I know this guy. And he like, he put the ET theme backwards and was like, there you go.
That's awesome.
So I've heard. It's urban legend now.
Urban legend.
Also, just to be clear, when E.T.'s pointing out the window and he's talking about, like he's trying to convey to them that he wants to like call home or phone home or whatever. I think he says home phone, and it's Gertrude who actually says that very iconic line of E.T. phone home. It's not E.T.
It isn't. I
It's
noticed
not
that
E.T.
too.
Yeah, he just says phone home, phone home.
Yeah.
No, he says home phone. He says it backwards. He says it inverted, because I was like, that's weird.
E.T. home phone.
Yeah.
And then Gertrude says E.T. phone home.
And then he kind of like nods his head like that's it. But he never says E.T. phone home.
Yeah.
He
people
says
are
home
always
phone,
like,
home
E.T.
phone, home phone.
phone home. That's incorrect, guys.
Yeah. I did not know that. I was waiting for it, and I was like, oh,
I've been lied to.
Boom, mind blown. The Bechdel test.
Bechdel test.
Let's see. There were 2 female characters, and one was 4.
They only talked about the boys.
Did they only talk about the boys?
They talked to each other, but I don't believe it was any form of.
Like, it was always like
substantial conversation.
Gertie, are you ready to go to school and stuff like that?
Well, one of them's 4.
Yeah.
And the other one is an adorable kid.
Well played. Well played.
So you can't really expect them to have very intelligent, high-level conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think when we talk about the Bechdel test, and this is something that you can probably do with most movies, you can almost in every movie technically make it pass if you have like 2 women literally say like thank you, or like holding a door, or like, you know, but the whole point is the relationship between the women something of substance. And while it's a mother and a daughter, and you can argue that's substantial, like they didn't present any form of...
You didn't get to see any relationship.
Right. You didn't see any depth of conversation or relationship between the 2 female characters, in this case, mother and daughter,
I think the most substantial thing she said is, it's saying be good. It's saying be good. And the mother just like, yes, dear. Now I have to go. Stay here alone.
Yeah. It's talking. It's talking. Yeah. Yeah. I did find it really interesting, and I guess it was just because they were trying to add that like cliff or the climax of the movie or whatever. Understand the whole like connection between E.T. and Elliot, and like, you know, he gets drunk, so Elliot gets drunk at school, and he walks into a wall, so his face hurts, and like stuff like that. I mean, I get you're doing that because ultimately E.T.'s going to get sick, and it's going to get Elliot sick and stuff like that. But I guess I could have done without that part of the movie.
Yeah, and he outright says, like, I don't know what it is, but, like, E.T. feels things and I feel them, too.
I think
so
it's
you already explained it.
Making a bond, I guess. But I feel like I didn't need that to have that friendship bond.
Mm-mm. And it also just, like, introduced one scene characters who, like, kind of do shit, and then they're not important.
Yeah.
They like introduce.
I think it raises the stakes. I think it was a stupid decision, but a story.
Yeah, I think
just
it's sort of a story.
Like all of our complaints about the negligence of the mother. I think it's stupid, but it serves the story, because our investment in E.T. is heightened because we're also invested in this
Elliot
human now that we can identify with.
It just makes me pissed off at E.T. Like,
I know.
You're putting a kid in danger. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
But it could be something, I mean, the argument against that could be like, that's just the natural being of his race, and like his race connects and they can disconnect and connect when they want, and he just didn't know that doesn't work the same way. And or it doesn't seem like E.T. went out and was like, I'm going to get horribly sick and kill this kid. Like, he wasn't being it was more like, you know, negligent homicide versus murder. It wasn't pre-planned or anything.
I think it also served to invest the older brother a little bit more in E.T.
And maybe the mom.
I don't really think that anything could have gotten her invested. She wasn't even there when he was sick, and then she wasn't even there when he was better, and then when E.T. died, where was the mom? Like, and then like Gertie was there, like watching the CPR on E.T. and like freaked the fuck out, and no one was there to like take her away from it or try to explain it to her or talk her through her feelings or anything. Like, where were the adults?
You guys are so harsh on the mom. Like, cut her just a little bit of slack here. It's got some really interesting cinematic things, like the scene when they're in the stocks. I mean, it reminded me of Signs, but this was also how many years before that?
Oh, yeah.
And some of the cinematography in that sense, I think, was really advanced for its day. And I think we're totally and utterly spoiled in our movies now.
I liked most of the cinematography. It was like a little, you know, the kids flying on the bikes, a little cheesy, Why did they keep pedaling? It wasn't necessary.
They had to
Every
keep themselves-
kid wanted a flying bicycle.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
but
we
like
also
I was
had-
just like, that's pretty cool. Most of this is pretty cool, save for the alien spaceship. I thought it looked like somebody's shed. Everything else is really well done.
Okay, but the pedaling bikes in the air, we had this conversation because it came up when we watched it. The idea is that I'm assuming ET gives them the leverage to go up, but they still have to project themselves forward. So the pedaling, I mean, there's no friction or anything. So the understanding is like there's magical friction.
But ET
you're
was able to
pushing
make
yourself
those
forward.
clay balls move around through the air however he wanted.
Well, yeah, but I would still pedal. I would still pedal through the air. I'd be like, whee!
I'm lazy, so I'd be like, I'll just
Me
coast.
too.
I'll just coast.
That's just gonna. Okay, thanks.
Well, that and if you're scared, I mean, you're like, oh my god, what's going on?
Oh my god!
Keep going when I'm going.
One of the kids had the most ridiculous, like, worst acted reactions. He's like closing his eyes and opens them and looks around, and, like, shakes his head and closes them again.
I want to dress up as those boys for Comic-Con. Bri looks so upset right now.
Are you guys sad that you didn't learn put the thermometer on the light bulb test trick?
Who says we didn't learn that?
From ET, but you didn't learn it from ET.
I didn't learn it from ET.
I don't know. I guess I never had to fake a temperature.
Yeah, my mom was a single mom too, so if I told her she was sick, she's like, fine, whatever, take care of yourself. I'll see you
Really?
afterward. Yeah.
That was one of my criticisms of this mom, was that, like, he was like, no, but I don't need to go to the doctor, blah! Like, faking vomiting, but also saying that he didn't have to go to the doctor. Where my mom was like, either I'm staying home with you or you are going to the doctor, but you are not staying home by yourself when you're sick.
She made you feel that, especially when you get to the point where I think it's when she's talking to the cop and Trudy or Gertrude says to the cop, like, my dad's in Mexico. And the mom looks at the cop and, is like, he never wanted to go to Mexico with me. Like, he never would go. Like,
she's more upset about the father being gone than the son.
It's like heart-wrenching. Like, you're just like, oh. Like, it's not an appropriate thing for a mom to do, but, like, you just feel so bad for her. You're like, oh, man.
Like,
well, you're better off without him, sweetheart. But it gives you that real insight. So I think the actress herself, whose name I have no idea what it is, like, I think she did a really good job, though.
And you're right. Like when any emotional response, good or bad, is an emotional response. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So in that sense, you could hate the movie, but at least it wasn't boring.
The characters were very the characters were very well written, but just the way
they
things
just weren't
happened,
enjoyable for you.
Yeah, the way things happened, I just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Of course, it is an alien, so I guess some of my criticisms were a little too harsh because it is a movie about an alien coming to Earth. So, like,
don't be so serious about it.
Yeah, I'm a little too serious about it.
Those are the movies that are the
pants.
most true to life. Like, those, like, that's why we love science fiction, is because we can process all of this shit that we can't process at face value. We have to have that metaphor in order for us to process it. And I think
this movie is a fun movie. If you take it on a surface level and you want a good laugh and you want some ridiculous facial expressions and name calling
and an endearing alien, even if Bri didn't think so.
You guys have me convinced that the characters were very well written. Like, I can agree on that now. Yeah. But I still think that E.T. sucked. Like, the character
you have
himself,
every right to
E.T.,
believe that, yeah.
I didn't like him. Every other character, very well written.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it was a fun movie. When we left, I had a good time. It was fun. It wasn't anything super deep or, it didn't have any sort of, like, iconic pivotal moment for me. But again, if I'd seen it when I was 7 or 8, I definitely might have had a different opinion of it. I probably would have been really, like, taken aback by some of the language, because the neighborhood I grew up in, like, that language didn't exist, at least to me. So, like, I would have heard, like, penis breath, and I would have been like,
You would have Trudied.
I totally would have Trudied.
Gertie,
whatever.
Gertrude and Trudy are names of themselves.
They're
Trudy
both
is
nicknames.
Gertie.
Gertie, Trudy.
They call
both
her all of
Gertrude.
them. Yeah. Either way, I would have had that reaction and been like, oh, I'm telling mom on you. So I thought it was a really fun movie. I had a good time with it.
Okay. I think that about wraps it up. There we go.
Hot diggity.
Thank you for joining us today. This has been
Andrea.
Sarah.
and Bri. You can find us at educatinggeeks.com, #educatinggeeks on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and even Google+. If you enjoy listening to Educating Geeks, make sure that you subscribe to us on Stitcher or iTunes. Subscribing will get you immediate access to our new episodes as soon as they're posted. And while you're there, why not give us a rating or a review? That'd be pretty cool. We'd really love to hear feedback from you about the show. Geek Supplies will come out on Wednesday, and the EGDG, Educating Geeks Drinking Game, rules for the podcast will be available next Friday. We'll hope you join us for our next episode, where we will be once again educating me and Drea on Old Man Logan. Thanks again, guys. Bye.